All right, I'm currently on the line with Tempest Crane. She's another musician that reached out about the interview session. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the chance to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Tempest Crane. I play with Harsh Reality, Chick Singer, and All the Pretty Horses. And you're somebody else because you're listening to me.
All right, very nice. Well, thank you for joining me. So let's kind of start at the beginning. Tell me about how all of this kind of began for you. What was the environment like growing up that kind of pushed you into learning music?
Uh, when I was probably about 6 years old or so, and this goes way back because I'm old. I was born in 1969, so if anybody wants to do the math, I'm 56 years old. So back when I was about 6 years old, they used to have these things called record clubs. And my mom belonged to a record club, and the deal was is you would join the record club, they'd send you a bunch of free albums, and then they'd send you a card for the album of the month every month. And if you didn't want the album of the month, you had to send the card back to them telling them that you didn't want it. Well, one of the albums of the month was Kiss Destroyer, and my mom forgot to send back the card saying she didn't want it. So she got it, and I took a look at the cover of that, and I saw Kiss in the makeup and the costumes and everything. They looked like fucking superheroes to me.
Mm.
And so I made her keep it, and I started listening to it, and it was life altering. I had listened to like Johnny Cash and some country western because I grew up in rural Nebraska. But I heard Kiss, and I was enthralled with it. The power of the music, that just the intensity of it, and everything. And I didn't even know what each individual member played or even who they were. But I wanted to be Gene Simmons. Little did I know that 50 years later, I would be wearing just as much makeup as he was.
Sure. So once you kind of had that bug set in you, how did you start exploring that? Did you immediately want to run out and pick up an instrument, or how did that all come together for you?
Yes, I did. I absolutely did. I had it was a like a dime store plastic guitar with like nylon strings. My mom had got me, and you couldn't play anything on it. But I loved the thing, and I wanted to be Kiss. So I took black and red magic marker. I drove flames and Kiss logos all over the thing. I converted it to a Kiss guitar, and pretty much for the next at least 10 years, maybe 12 years, something like that, I begged my mom to buy me a guitar. And my mom steadfastly refused. Closest thing I ever got was she uh, got me rented a saxophone and got me music lessons that lasted all of a month because I really didn't want to play saxophone. I sucked at it because I didn't want to do it.
Sure.
I wanted a guitar, but she refused. And that was probably the most definitive thing in my life that ever solidified my musical career. My mother refused to buy me a guitar. So at 16 years of age, I got a job working in a shitty fast food restaurant. And I worked as many hours closing, whatever I could do, washing dishes, anything to earn money. And so within a couple months, I bought my first bass guitar from a pawn shop and an amplifier. And I've never quit after that because I had to wait so long and work so hard to get it. I refused to give it up.
That's awesome. So tell me a bit about how you actually started to learn the instrument. You mentioned obviously Kiss was a huge influence for you. Did you start learning Kiss songs, or did you do like private lessons?
I didn't even have a tuner when I got it. I bought a bass guitar, bought an amp, didn't have a tuner, didn't realize I would need a tuner. I was just a kid, and so I had a neighbor who had a rock and roll band, and he came over and kind of taught me how to tune it. I didn't do it really good, but I got in the ballpark at least. Um, and that was my only ever lesson or anything at it. And after that, learning to play the instrument was kind of like pulling teeth with a spoon. It was slow and incredibly painful. First song I ever learned was Motorhead's cover of Louie Louie. Straight up three chord song, but it was raw and it was rock and roll. And I messed around with it, messed around with it. It probably took me like 2, 3 weeks to learn this three chord song. But I finally got that down, and I would play that every day. And I would play whether I could play anything worth a shit or not, I would play every day. And gradually I started picking up things. And then I learned Paranoid by Black Sabbath. And then I learned the parts of Iron Man that everybody would recognize. And just little by little, I kept adding to it.
Okay, and then how long do you think it took you before you felt comfortable enough to start like auditioning for bands and stuff?
I don't know if I ever felt uncomfortable auditioning for bands.
Okay.
I've always wanted to do rock and roll. It's been the singular thing my life is focused around is I've always wanted to be in bands, and I've always felt I should be in bands. So I've never felt uncomfortable going in for an audition or anything. I always feel a little bit nervous that I want to make sure that I always do the best job possible. Yeah, I'll tell a story about how I got in All the Pretty Horses. Back in about 2003 or 2004, Venus was looking for a new bass player because her current bass player kind of self-destructed on stage in New York, had a bit of a meltdown or something, and she was looking for a new bass player. And so I went in, I met Venus. She gave me a CD and a list of songs, and she said, "Pick three of these songs, and here's the CD, and I'm going to have you in about a week, and I'd like you to audition on three songs." And I took those CDs and I went home and I looked at the set list, and I'd been playing in bands for, a good 10, 12 years at that point. So I looked at the list and I go, this is a set list. I know a set list when I see it. And
Sure.
I popped in the CD and I started working on it. And every day I would wake up in the morning and I would go over those songs for like an hour before I had to go into work. And then I would, on my break, I would have my another bass guitar with me. I'd bring it inside and I'd go over the songs again. And then I'd get done with work and I'd go home and I'd run the songs. I'd make dinner, watch a TV show, and then run the songs until like 10 o'clock at night. And so when I finally went in to audition for All the Pretty Horses, I went in and Venus was there and Jen Dean was there, and they're all there like, okay, well, did you have a chance to go over the songs? Yes, I did. Because did you learn at least like one or two of them? Because evidently the auditions were not going well. People were coming in and they didn't know a single song, or they'd struggle to get through a single song. It was not going well. And they said, well, did you learn any of the songs? Yeah, at least a couple. And I said, I'm looking at the list here. This is a set list, isn't it? And Venus goes, yeah, this is a set list. This is currently what we play on stage. I said, good. I learned all of it. And she goes, in 5 days? I said, yes, all of it. You know all of them. Yes, I do. She didn't believe me. She said, can you play the first song? Sure. We ran through the first song, and Jandine's back there with a little smile on her face. She's like, this is going to be cool. And she goes, well, what about the second song? So we ran through the second. We did that for like 5 or 6 songs until Venus realized I really did learn the entire set list. And the only person that had ever done that and walked in knowing all the songs on the audition was Jen Dean. And Jen Dean absolutely insisted that I be in the band at that point. Venus was kind of like waffling about, oh, we have this other person. Maybe we could teach them how to play the parts. And Jen Dean's like, are you kidding me? It's going to be Tempest.
Yeah, I mean, why train somebody when you have somebody that already taught themselves all the songs? Absolutely. That's great. And you mentioned that was back in 2003, and that was obviously like 20 years ago. And I know you guys are still going strong too, so it's great that that's all worked out.
Well, All the Pretty Horses just had our reunion. The band, as All the Pretty Horses, broke up so Venus could launch a solo career shortly after winning the Minnesota Music Academy Award for Best Hard Rock Band back in 2006. So Venus wanted to go off and do some solo things, a little bit different direction. Jen Dean and I went on to reform Harsh Reality at that point, and we kind of did our thing. Venus did her thing. And as band breakups go and things like that, things go sideways and it got weird. And long story short, like many bands, we didn't, like 2, 3 years after the breakup, some people said some different things and everybody got bent out of shape, and we didn't talk to each other for like 15 years.
Oh, okay. That
And like
sucks.
refused to speak to each other. So, and a little while ago, I realized like that band was really great and I really would love to play that. I've still got Harsh Reality going, but I really would love to get back with that. And we're all getting older.
Well, so let's table that for a moment. We'll come back to the reunion, but let's talk a bit about Harsh Reality and how that came to be. You somewhat hinted at the fact that it came out of the ashes of All the Pretty Horses, kind of going their separate ways. But give me a little bit more detail about how it came together.
Well, Harsh Reality actually came before All the Pretty Horses. That was formed in 1989 in October at a place called Sprouts Deli in Grand Forks, North Dakota, with a guitar player, myself, and I can't remember who's playing drums back then. Um, and we started Harsh Reality. And it was basically a cover band with a couple originals. We were ripping off Danzig because Danzig had just come out. So we wrote a song called "I Am What I Am" that it lifted their riff structure a lot, their technique, and so we formed that. And I stayed in the Dakotas for a few years. Finally, got out of North Dakota, moved to Minneapolis, brought most of the band with me, hired a new drummer, and continued on. And we had some decent success. We had a rehearsal studio up above the old 4th Street station, Ryan's Bar. We were playing shows with like American Head Charge and all around that scene, playing with Black Flood Diesel. I think they played my album release show, and then I turned around and played their album release show back in, I don't know, 95, 96, something like that. And we've been doing shows together ever since then.
Okay, so that really was kind of running in tandem with All the Pretty Horses then.
Well, Harsh Reality was shelved when I joined All the Pretty Horses.
Okay.
Our drummer had gone a different direction. Our guitar player had moved back to the Dakotas, and our singer was just kind of having a moment of not being in the music for a while.
Okay. So was there a period of time there where you didn't have a project that you were working on, like between Harsh Reality kind of taking a pause and then All the Pretty Horses kind of disbanding for a bit?
Um, well, after All the Pretty Horses had disbanded, I brought Harsh Reality back, and we ran hard.
Okay.
Back in 2008, we did 199 shows that year.
Oh, geez.
I was really proud of that because that was one less show than Motorhead did that year. And Motorhead were like my idols. And I'm like, I ran the numbers. I'm like, holy shit, we did one less song, one less appearance than Motorhead. And we were opening for like Metal Church and Voivod and Loudness, Faster Pussycat, Rhino Bucket, a whole bunch of different bands and things like that. And so we were going all over the place. We did a tour through the desert Southwest. So we're just all over the place. We appeared on film and TV soundtracks, and things were going good. But as usual, bands self-destruct after a little while. I don't know, maybe just being crammed in a van together for so long on the road, kind of burned out some of the people. Guitar player wanted to kind of go in his own direction. Singer was getting burned out about doing show after show after show after show. We weren't spending a lot of time writing new material. Because we were always on the road, we kept using basically the same material because it's still going over. And that's a thing. When you have a band and you write a hit, you keep that in your set list. Ozzy Osbourne, did Paranoid and stuff like that, almost up until the day he died. So you keep that material in there, and you kind of work in new material here and there. But we were on the road so much, we weren't creating new material, and so we kind of fell apart. And then I ran into a dark era of my life where I didn't do music for a number of years. Ended up, it's not a big secret. I ended up an addict on some really hard shit. I ended up in a bad relationship with somebody that was incredibly abusive. I almost got myself murdered about 6 times. It was an absolute disaster, and it took a lot out of me.
So let's kind of pivot back to the reunion of All the Pretty Horses. Tell me about the motivation to get that project going back again.
Well, I started talking with Venus again last year, and it was shortly after I had a heart attack in January. And my drummer and partner, Jen Dean, had also had a heart attack a couple years prior to that. A couple years prior to that, Venus had a heart attack. And I'm looking at it, I'm looking at how old we all are and things like this. If we don't do this, it's not going to happen. At some point, somebody's not going to be there. And when you reach your 50s or 60s or above, you start noticing that friends are starting to fall off. You realize there's a mortality there, and you need to make the most out of everything. And so I got a hold of Venus, and I said, we should really talk about reuniting the lineup. She goes, well, I've been thinking about that. I'd really like to. I said, time's wasting. We need to do it. And we talked a little bit more, and an opportunity came up this spring for us to get back together. We played at Palmer's, probably about 200 people there. The place was packed, and it went over well. And it was like coming home. It felt so right to be on stage with that band, playing those songs again. Everything just felt good.
That's awesome. Well, I won't keep you here too much longer. I know you have a bunch of stuff coming up, and I know as a part of doing this interview, I wanted to help you promote the show that you have coming up this weekend. So, Harsh Reality is headlining Crypticon. Give me a little bit of information about that.
Absolutely. September 12th, Crypticon, Harsh Reality Headlines with our special friends, The Untimely. We're going to be there September 12th. It starts about 10:15. It's part of the after party. It's in the music room. And there's going to be celebrities there. There's going to be horror films. There's going to be cosplay and costumes, science fiction stuff. There's all sorts of different stuff going on. But we're going to be there. We're a theatrical rock band. We always turn it up to 11, and we're going to put on a hell of a show.
All right, sounds good. Well, why don't you give me some social media links? Where can people follow Harsh Reality, All the Pretty Horses, and then you individually, since you kind of are your own celebrity in Minneapolis? So, where can people find you?
If I would have known there's going to be a quiz, I would have goddamn studied. All right, so you're going to have to use Google a little bit. So, you can find Harsh Reality. I believe it's on Harsh Reality Outlaws on Facebook. All the Pretty Horses is under Venus de Mars and the Adventures of All the Pretty Horses. You can find me on Facebook under Tempest Crane or TS Rock Doll. You can also Google for me. Just be a little bit careful when you Google, because not all of my material is safe for work, if you get my meaning.
All right. I will definitely make sure all that gets tagged as well. But I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So what's a message that you have that you want to share with other people?
Don't give up, ever. Pursue your dreams. The only way you'll ever catch a dream is if you refuse to give up chasing it.